Thank you, Mr. President. I am rising in support of this legislation. This legislation is about women's health, Mr. President. It is about the ability of women to control their own bodies and manage their own health care with medication that is safe. 2 years ago, as Senator Bateman just shared, under threat of a U.S. District Court judge about to take action and potentially restrict access to mifepristone for the rest of the country, this state took action. Using our pharmacy license from the Department of Corrections, we took action to ensure that Washingtonians would still have access to this important medication that was approved over a quarter century ago by the FDA. Today, we are putting this bill back before this legislature to continue to ensure access to those medications. And Mr. President, so much of this debate today has focused on abortion. But what is often not discussed, Mr. President, is the exact combination of medication that is used to terminate a pregnancy before 10 weeks is the exact same combination of drugs used to manage a miscarriage. The exact same combination. Because we are talking about medication, Mr. President, I'd like to speak briefly about how the medication works. Mifepristone blocks progesterone. Progesterone is critical for the viability of a pregnancy. And when one takes mifepristone, it allows the pregnancy to separate from the uterine wall, allows the body to shed those cells. And then in combination, 24 to 48 hours later, you take misoprostol, which induces uterine contractions, which allows your body to expel that tissue. Now, Mr. President, you might think that somebody who has experienced a miscarriage wouldn't need the first part of the drug, wouldn't need the progesterone to release the unviable pregnancy. But that's not entirely true. And you might think in the state of Washington, a very pro-choice state, that women in our state might not have any problem accessing mifepristone. Wrong again, it turns out. Mr. President, when you are trying to manage a miscarriage, it is true that you could take the misoprostol just to induce the uterine contractions, but it's not the ideal circumstance. Medical teams recommend you take the combination of drugs because that is the most effective way to manage that miscarriage. When you manage a miscarriage just with misoprostol and not mifepristone, sometimes, Mr. President, it doesn't work like it's supposed to. Sometimes what happens, Mr. President, is what happened to me. As you know, Mr. President, I am the mother of one child, a very sweet little 5-year-old boy who everybody will see again next week. When I joined the Senate 3 years ago, I was pregnant. My family, we were so excited to welcome a second baby into our family. But as I served during the 2023 session, I went to an appointment at 7 weeks and found out that my pregnancy was not progressing. I went back at 8 weeks and it was confirmed it wasn't a viable pregnancy. It would not come to term. And my medical team recommended that I take a combination of mifepristone and misoprostol to manage that miscarriage. They knew I was very interested in having the chance to get pregnant again, and this was the most effective, safe way for me to manage my miscarriage and help my body shed the cells. To my great surprise, Mr. President, despite being a sitting state senator with health insurance and all the resources in the world to manage this situation, I could not access mifepristone. I called every major pharmacy chain in the state of Washington. I called, my husband called, my dear friend called. Nobody would dispense it. So I'm at 8 weeks pregnant, almost 9 weeks. This medication only works in the first 10 weeks of gestation. Facing what I felt like was no other option, I took the misoprostol without having the mifepristone. I went through those gut-wrenching contractions that were mentioned earlier, which I'd venture to say every woman who has experienced menstruation knows what it feels like, and especially those who have carried a child and delivered one. I went through it 48 hours in the privilege of my own home. And then I came back to the Senate, Mr. President, and while sitting on this floor, my body let me know it was not done. I will spare you all the details, Mr. President, but what you need to know, what I found out later, is I had experienced an incomplete miscarriage, meaning my body thought it was still pregnant. I didn't have mifepristone. I didn't have the progesterone blocker. So my body thought it was still pregnant. And weeks later, so I'm now outside of that 10-week window. And to finish the process of having a miscarriage, I got to go have a medical procedure that was entirely preventable. I had to have an invasive surgery to ensure that I didn't get an infection and potentially deny myself the chance of getting pregnant again. As you know, Mr. President, I am the mom of one. I didn't get that chance again to get pregnant. And I say that not to make people feel bad or try to draw up empathy, because I am deeply aware that I am not the only woman in this chamber right now that has experienced pregnancy loss. I tell this story to illustrate the point that this is about women's health care, that these are medications that are safe. They have been approved by the FDA for more than 25 years, and they are still hard to get access to. I am proud that Washington State, after passage of this bill, what we do now is a state where you can manage a miscarriage in dignity. That's what we're trying to do here, Mr. President. So I ask you, and I ask all of my colleagues in the chamber, please vote yes to continue to have access to good, strong women's health in the state of Washington. Thank you.
If there are no further remarks,